Okay. Hello, friends, and welcome to episode number 3 of Authentic and Unaltered. With me is Adam of Vintage Sanctuary. He is a great YouTuber that primarily focuses on vintage baseball and has a credible passion for Yankee contributors, many of whom are lesser known. But I decided to invite him for this episode number 3 with the greatest Yankee of all time being number 3, Mr. Babe Ruth. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you so much, John. It's awesome to be here. I appreciate it.
It's great to have you. In case any of you aren't aware, Adam and I are actually located in the same metro area of Portland, Oregon. And really the only people in this vintage community that live in this area. And as a result, we don't have a wide selection of card shows that show a lot of vintage, which is unfortunate. But we're trying to make our way, meeting lots of friends on YouTube. So, but to start out, Adam, with your videos, you are kind of the master of puns and dad jokes. How long have you been developing this technique of yours? Does this start from raising your kids? Is this something you developed in the classroom? Where does all this come from?
Well, thank you. And I feel like I've kind of dropped the ball on the puns because my last several videos have not had many puns. So, I need to step up to the plate and get some more puns out there. But you really hit the nail on the head. It was a combination of in my teaching. I'm a community college math teacher, so I love to torment students with puns. And then we have 3 children. They're all adults now, so none of them live at home. And I really enjoyed tormenting them with puns as well. So it was really a combination of the two.
It's really an activity that all dads like to partake in, I believe. So,
Hey, it's one of our, it's one of the ways that we survive. That's for sure.
exactly. I mean, it's the reason it's called dad jokes. So, starting YouTube itself. So, what was your inspiration to actually get your mug on this camera and present it to the world?
Yeah, well, let me just say, and I'm not saying this for false humility, although I'm certainly capable of somebody. Like, I feel like my videos are cringeworthy. Actually, I did not want to get on YouTube, John. What I wanted to do was find collecting friends without getting on YouTube because I wanted these real relationships where I'd see the people face to face. And to me, the whole online thing felt kind of artificial. But not really knowing anyone around here locally, and of course, I didn't know you at the time. Um, Eventually, my desire to have these friendships, these connections, overcame my loathing of going online. And I actually took a chance and reached out to Mike Moynihan with his Golden Age of Cardboard podcast and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about interviewing someone that's new to the vintage card space? And by the way, I volunteer myself." Well, I didn't expect to hear back from him, but he took a chance on me. I was on his program, and I felt like I had, connected in some way with the community. And I was on Cloud Gem Mint 10, and I was on such a high that I made a video, a cringeworthy video, and then another one, and then another one. And then I started connecting with people. So it took really ultimately, it had to get to the point where my loathing of online, because it didn't feel like a real connection, was um, ultimately overcame because of my desire to have friends in this hobby with this shared passion, and then just my Gem Mint 10 cloud that I was on after the Golden Age of Cardboard episode just put me over the top, and I just made a video and took it from there.
And honestly, that interview was great because that's how I found you. So, it was perfect to me because, you know, as soon as I saw that, then I started replying to your videos, and we ended up talking to each other, you know, because, you know, he revealed on there where you lived. And so it's like, wow, there's somebody out there that actually lives on this side of the country. Um, so I thought it was kind of amazing. It is kind of incredible because it almost feels like you skipped a lot of steps in between. You went straight to getting interviewed by one of the guys that's almost like the godfather of the vintage baseball space.
Yeah, I went straight to the top, and uh, it's interesting how these friendships develop, John. Because I'll just talk about you and I. So, we had a little interaction with YouTube comments, and then I believe you had suggested, how about if we meet at our one local card show? I mean, that's just about the only one we get, and so
Yeah.
we met there, and you know. I mean, just to be open about it, I think it was maybe a little awkward for both of us. We haven't had collector friends, and so we started this friendship. I will say, though, something that, I guess I hadn't expected. I don't know, maybe because uh, I wasn't so enthused about connecting online. I feel like I've gotten to know you better through the online experience as well. So it's been a combination of the little bit of time we've been able to spend face to face, together with either through phone texting or through watching your videos and you watching mine and YouTube comments. I feel like I've gotten to know you more. So it's been a combination of getting to know you, the amount I was blessed to actually see you face to face, and I'm sure we'll have more of that in the future, in addition to the way our friendship has, evolved through the YouTube community as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, I never anticipated it would just happen this fast either. I mean, it yeah, it's like once you get the ball rolling, it just goes down the hill, and it's, you know, a snowball gathering. More and more people you meet, and just more and more interactions. And
Yeah, yeah, and I will say that's been because even though I was, and I can be a pretty open person in terms of what I'm willing to share about my thoughts and my feelings. Even though on the one hand I really desperately wanted. I mean, I have a friend, maybe two. I have some friends in life, but none that are in this card collecting space or this memorabilia and card collecting space. So even though I really desperately wanted to develop some relationships with other collectors, at the same time, it was kind of overwhelming because when you jump into it, you're kind of committed now, and now you're going to be having a lot of relationships to build over time. And I mean, that's a wonderful thing, but it has at times been kind of overwhelming for me as well, even though I'm grateful for it.
oh yeah, I feel the same way on that front. I mean, uh, just connecting faces and names and channel names for a while, it felt a little overwhelming in my head. So because there's just so many people that end up, you know, you commenting on their stuff, they comment on your stuff, and
and
yeah.
and I'm still wrestling with, I mean, it's a wonderful quote unquote problem to have, but I'm still wrestling with, you know, uh, watching YouTube content and how much I'll watch and how to manage that, and balance that with other priorities and desires in life. So it'll work out. But yeah, I'm really blessed and grateful to be connecting with all these guys, yourself included. I'm really, very blessed that you're a local collector, not only a local collector, but uh, you're a great guy that I really appreciate too. So, I didn't get unlucky, and the one local vintage collector was somebody that I didn't connect well with, or that was, well, just put it this way, maybe a jerk or something. So,
Well, thank you. The feeling is mutual. Okay, moving on. Uh, so, as a kid, did you have any collections? I know the baseball cards is a completely new thing. I mean, what did you collect as a kid?
yeah. So as a kid, we got into stamps. One of my teachers really cool guy. I went to this small, oh, we moved around a lot. My childhood was pretty chaotic, but without getting into all of that, at one point I was going to this small private Christian school, and we had this really cool teacher. And so he kind of got us into stamp collecting. And so he brought in, I think he had paid like $20 for this, huge group of stamps. And then most of the class would collect, like some people might collect flowers or animals on stamps. And we'd pay like maybe dimes or nickels. I'm sure he wasn't making any money, but he was teaching us about, economy as well. So my friend Frank and I got into stamp collecting. And anyway, we had a good time doing that. So I was a young stamp collector. And then later on, I got into coins, and I did do some basketball cards. And, at one point I was more serious about basketball cards, then I was more serious about coins. And then in the middle of 2020, it had nothing to do with the pandemic. I was just surfing YouTube's, uh, what I like to call surfing the YouTubes, when I saw a guy showing some vintage baseball cards. And I decided to get a vintage baseball card, and it kind of snowballed from there. So that's probably more than the basic answer, but that's the just very brief kind of collecting journey.
Okay. Oh, 1 second. I need to plug in my power cord before my phone dies. Uh, Back on the basketball cards, I was wondering, when did that actually start? Was that as a kid? Because it seems like you do have a deeper knowledge of the players on that sport, for historically.
Yeah, so I can remember opening some packs around 90, 91, 92. Um, and I got some Shaq rookies, but I really got serious about my Shaq rookie collection a little bit later. That might have been late 90s. I was just basically trying to get one of each in really nice condition. I wasn't thinking about grading at all. I was just really, really picky about condition for whatever reason. I mean, it's weird. Like I really do think it was kind of a disorder or something, John, because if I saw anything like just a little speck on a corner or something, I was like, oh, that one's not perfect. I don't know. It might possibly relate a little bit to my stamp collecting background, because with stamps, if there's some, if they're used stamps, they were soaked off the envelope. And that worked pretty well for old stamps, because in the 1800s, they would have a fairly high cotton fiber content, maybe 30% or whatever it was. But if they had some tiny little thin, where the paper was a little thinner, that reduced the value substantially, or some tiny little closed tear on the edge. And you're inspecting these stamps, they're small to begin with, with fairly high magnification. So it's possible part of that pickiness was related to stamp collecting. Part of it, just to be open, I think, was just some sort of perfectionistic type disorder I was dealing with, which is interesting once I eventually moved into the vintage card space. But anyway, early 90s, and then sometime probably later in the 90s is when I got more serious about the Shaq rookies. I would say probably off and on during the 90s is probably the best way to describe it.
And yeah, the your picky eye though, those are some amazing grades you got on those Shaq rookies. That some of them are very tough, condition sensitive issues there. So
Oh, thank you.
now, as far as then getting into vintage baseball, at what point? How long have you been in it now?
So I think it was maybe May or June. I'd have to go look at my records of 2020. So it's been, um, you know, 2020, 21, 22, 23. Wow. I mean, we're getting up there. I
Year
guess
and a
we're at
half, or
we're at about 2.5 years now, I
yeah,
guess.
2.5 years. Yeah.
So I was literally just what I like to call surfing the YouTubes, where uh, you know, I'm watching YouTube videos on, I mean, just whatever interests me. It could be some funny animal video or you name it. And so some guy was doing well, not just some guy. It turns out it was John, who's talking ball cards, paparazzi.
Oh
It's
yeah.
So he was doing a reveal. I don't remember if it was an SGC or PSA reveal or mixed grading company reveal. And so he showed some 56 Topps cards. I don't even remember which ones. And but I remember him showing the back. When he got to the back and I saw that colorful 3-panel cartoon, literally this nostalgic wave came over me, and I was like, I've got to get one of those. And so my goal was just to get just one 1956 Topps vintage baseball card and call it good. But it snowed, I can elaborate more if you want, but I did get one and then another, and it kind of snowballed from there. I
Like a
didn't go
drug.
in. What's that? Yeah.
Like a drug.
Yeah, that's right. More addicting than even today's drugs.
One and you were hooked.
I didn't know I was hooked yet. Well, I'll just say I got Hoyt Wilhelm, which, by the way, I recently gave that away to Vintage Card Steve. I sent him a care package. I know he's a big Hoyt Wilhelm fan. And I mean, that's the first vintage card I got, which is pretty cool, but I'm okay giving it away. I enjoy the card. I like the card, but I thought, this looks like something that he would like. So I sent that to him along with a few other cards. So that was the first one I got. And once I got the Hoyt Wilhelm, and I knew nothing about vintage baseball. In fact, I never watched baseball except maybe a few World Series games. And so the reason I got Hoyt Wilhelm is I got online and I saw the Hall of Famers, and I thought, well, I'm just going to get an inexpensive Hall of Famer. So that's what I did. It was a BVG grade. I knew nothing about BVG, but card looked nice to me, off center but sharp. And then a few days passed after I got that card. I thought, that's it for vintage baseball. I just wanted one of these because I think it's pretty nostalgic and cool with those cartoons. And I kid you not, like I had this visceral feeling like in my gut because I then wanted the mantle out of that set. And I knew, somehow I knew, Mantle. I mean, I had heard of Mickey Mantle, and it's like, wait a minute. I started to learn a little bit, like, whoa, this was a big year for Mantle. His Triple Crown year, plus they won the championship. Kind of the heart of the golden era, 1956. Cool looking card. I like the cartoons on the back there as well. Just I'm like, I want one of those. And the reason I had this sinking feeling in my gut is because that's not an inexpensive card, and that would take away from my coin collecting because that was my focus at the time. So I sold one of my Shaq Beam Team rookies. I had 3 of them. I sold one and I got lucky. It was just like right pretty much at the peak. I got a high price for it. And this is before the Mantle took off. So I was able to pay for, maybe 80% of the Mantle that way. So I got the Mantle. And that was unexpected because that's money that could have went toward coins. But I'm like, well, now I'm just getting the Mantle, right? That'll be it. But then, and then I really hadn't given up coin collecting. In fact, I haven't bought a coin for a long time, but I still have coins, and I sell them slowly to help finance my card collection. It remains to be seen if I will add some coins in the future, if I'll keep selling coins, if at some point I'll say I want to keep the rest of the coins because I like the coins as well. But there are reasons why I like the cards more. I won't get into that unless you want me to, because I get pretty long-winded.
Well, we'll just real quick to show the folks at home. Do you have the Mantle right there on standby, or?
I can get the Mantle pretty quick. I should have had this on standby. I got to go the right way. Here we go. Now it does have the plastic over it. It is off center, but other than the off center, it's super sharp. And like I say, now if I were to go after this Mantle today, I don't mind a little off center. I feel like, it's nice and bright white too. I feel like it may not be showing up that way. Because of course people want to see it in all of its glory. I'll take it out of there.
It does look nicer outside the plastic.
Oh, thank you. So my concern, because that was a high dollar card, even though it had not taken off yet, had this big jump yet,
Yeah.
because the vintage lagged behind. The sports card market really started to take off, but the vintage was lagging a bit.
Oh yeah,
My
it started with NBA, so you were perfect with selling the Shack.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah. So my concern was that I wouldn't like it because I had not collected vintage baseball cards before, but I knew I was picky. My pickiness had mellowed out a little bit from, back in the day when I was collecting the Shacks, but not that much at the time. So that's why I went with this 5. It was off center, but very sharp. In fact, looking at it as best as I can tell, the only really thing it has to bring the grade down, it seems, it's just so sharp. It seems is the off center that I can tell anyway. So, and that doesn't bother me. I think it's just fine. So at that time, I went for one. I just wanted a sharp one. And I'm happy with it. If I were to do it today, my pickiness is mellowed out some. So, you know, I'd be happy with that one. But because that grade got so expensive, if I were looking for one of those today, it'd probably be a little bit lower grade, and I could give a little more on the corners. I might try to get it a little better centered, but I can live with that centering. But anyway, um, you know, that's the
it's
one I
a
got.
beautiful card, though.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really stoked, really blessed to have it. And at that point, that was going to be the end of uh, vintage, but it ended up being just the beginning.
Well, and you kept going with Yankee contributors. Was there a particular, you know, propensity for New York, or is just because that was the glory team of that era? I mean, what drew you to the Yankee players?
Yeah, that's a great question. You must be a professional interviewer because you're asking great questions.
Thank you.
um, okay, so I didn't know much about vintage baseball or even baseball, and I don't claim to know a whole lot now. I'm piecing things together and learning from others and doing some reading. Um, so of course, I figured out that New York baseball in the '50s, that was kind of the golden era right there, and of course the Yankees were part of that as well as the Dodgers and the Giants. So the reason I went after the Yankee contributors, some of the non Hall of Famers, people like Eddie Lopat and Jerry Coleman and Ali Reynolds and so forth, is because they were a lot less expensive. So I have went after some more expensive cards, but I've tried to kind of, I guess you could say, manage my budget. Well, sometimes I just buy something expensive and sell some coins, but I've tried to kind of manage my budget by throwing in some buying some less expensive cards as well. So these Yankee contributors that are non-Hall of Famers appeal to me because, some of them made significant contributions uh, to World Series or to the regular season, where you had to have the best record in your league to get to the World Series, but yet they didn't cost that much. And I must confess, I'm a fan of winning. I'm a fan of players that were involved in winning and dealing with that pressure. I have become aware that there were some advantages the Yankees had for sure that helped them out in their quest to obtain championships. Um, Having said that, and it seemed like, also, let me say, it seemed like a reasonable place to start because knowing so little, by collecting some of these Yankee contributors, that just seemed like a nice place to start because I was getting players. They may not be Hall of Famers, but to me, they contributed significantly in baseball history. And I was, seemed like a nice place to start to learn about the game and learn about the history some. However, I think I'm an interesting type of Yankee fan because I've discovered out there, you have Dodgers fans that quote unquote hate the Yankees, or just have some disdain or whatever, like to root for them to lose. And then you have, Yankees fans that maybe hate the Red Sox or whatever. I like these Yankee contributors, but that doesn't mean that I don't like Dodgers or I don't like Red Sox. It's like I like all the teams. So I'm sort of, I like all the players. Um, like, to me, it's not like
Yeah.
Ted Williams has to be the rival of uh, Mickey Mantle or Duke Snyder. To me, it's like, well, there's three great players. I would love to have a card of all of them. So
you're really agnostic as far as favoritism to any particular team, really. So
I'm pretty agnostic. Yeah. And the deal is when we get back to the vintage space, those games have already been played. Those championships have already been won or lost. The pennants have been won or lost. So, there's not, I mean, it's very different, I think, than current day where you're rooting for a team and you're rooting against the other team because the outcome is not determined.
yeah, I mean, I think the bitterness for many people to describe it would be the annoyance of listening to the fans of the team that wins every year and how angry they are that they don't win every single season. So
I can go
yeah,
ahead. I'm sorry.
it feels like they're spoiled already. So
Yes, I can, I think I get that. I think I do get that on some level. I can totally understand why people would root against the Yankees or get tired of, the amount of winning they did historically. I can understand that. I will say somebody like Ted Williams, you know, he might be my favorite player, maybe as I'm learning, possibly more than any Yankee player. Although it's tough for me to pick favorites, but he never won a championship. One thing I think is kind of cool about baseball, though, is that sure, winning a championship, a World Series is nice. It's wonderful. But, you know, somebody like Ted Williams, he did some pretty amazing things. He was a two-time Triple Crown winner, so even though he didn't win a world championship, he was an amazing player. Some people say the best hitter ever, and he contributed to the sport. And he has some amazing records, the highest on base percentage. So you don't have to win a championship, and I appreciate the collectors out there. They're collecting some players that will never get Hall of Fame consideration. Maybe they never won a championship, but they like those players. They like those teams, and I think that's pretty cool too.
yeah, well, just for fun, anyways, I thought I'd show you a couple more examples of my favorite some of my favorite Yankee
Oh,
contributors. So
here they come.
we've got Mr. Sandy Koufax, who in 1963 helped the Dodgers sweep the Yankees. Pitched 2 complete games, gave up a total of only 3 earned runs on the way to the Yankees, I believe, first and only sweep in the World Series.
So,
So,
before you go further, let me just say that doesn't hold a candle to Eddie Lopat, who in 1951 pitched 2 complete games and had an ERA of 0.5, only allowing 1 earned run,
all
and the
right.
Yankees won their 3rd out of 5 in a row. Okay, go
So
ahead.
clearly that makes Eddie Lopat a superior pitcher to Sandy Koufax in the annals of history.
Clearly, he has a career WAR of 32.2. Clearly,
Oh, yeah.
clearly.
And from my next Yankee contributor, I've brought Mr. Bob Gibson, who
All right.
helped the St. Louis Cardinals defeat the Yankees in 1964. Pitched 3 games, only got the win in 2, but struck out a lot of guys and did his usual thing of intimidating everyone. So
Nice. Wait, don't forget about this, John. Remember, you're my friend. Go ahead, bring it on.
that's all for fun. That's
It
I
is.
mean, I've already done the Mazeroski thing, so I won't poke at that one again. But
No, if you're prepared to do so, I'm totally cool with it.
but
It's all
honestly,
for
the
fun.
Pirates were so disrespected there that they still gave the MVP to Bobby Richardson in the losing effort. So um, clearly, the Mazeroski was just a single moment there. So, but
My understanding is, and you probably know more about this than me, but the Yankees, again, they had some advantages for sure. I mean, not to take away from the fact that, a lot of those World Series they won were close. And so, give them credit, but they definitely had some advantages. But their hesitancy, to say the least, to embrace integration really hurt them because they
oh yeah.
might have won some more championships down the road rather than fading if they had embraced integration earlier.
And honestly, I think the thing that sped up the integration the most was the fact that the Dodgers were being so successful. by
Mm.
adding so many players and started winning World Series with them. So
So they were forced to compete or
because
suffer more.
ultimately they decided winning and drawing fans to create more revenue was more important than the colors of the players' skins. So the color green is still most important to the owners.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Well said.
So, but yeah, with the Yankees, unfair. Like even today, the lack of revenue sharing in Major League Baseball hurt the competitive balance back then. I mean, you had the Kansas City A's were practically the farm team for the Yankees. So
Yeah, definitely some. Just wanted to show the greatest pitcher of all time, Eddie Lopat.
all right. Any other cards you'd like to show off while you're at it?
I am still on cloud. By the way, I'll just say quickly for those of your viewers who don't know, um, why do I like Eddie Lopat so much? I mean, I guess I have some sense of it, but I'm not sure exactly why. I think it's because uh, to me, I mean, clearly he's not a Hall of Famer. He's never going to be a Hall of Famer, and I get that. But like the dude was in the minor leagues for like 7 years, and he gets to the Chicago White Sox, and he's winning at about 500. He's winning about half his games roughly, but uh, and he toils away there for I think that'd be 48 or 44 to 48 somewhere in February. I think of 48, he's traded to the Yankees, and the dude doesn't have a fastball, but he's just really a smart guy, and he throws a variety of you know uh, just a lot of different pitches, known as the junk man, causing Ted Williams to call him that bleeping low pad. I'll keep it PG here, which is a great compliment. And like they would wear kind of these wool uniforms, and it was very common for it to get really hot out in the field, and players would be sweating, but it seemed like Lopat was always just cool as a cucumber. He had some great seasons there with the Yankees. He's somebody that would give his time to other people, and so I think it's just a combination of things. I just really like the guy, even though I'm totally aware that he was in the right place at the right time to be a part of those 5 championships in a row. But I'm totally aware that he's not going to be a Hall of Famer. But anyway, I just really like him, and I think that's kind of cool. Um, and I didn't expect that to happen. It just did, and I'm really new in this journey. So who knows where this journey will take me in terms of finding out about players. But I'm still on Cloud Gem Mint 10 over picking up this card fairly recently in the last, month-ish or 6 weeks or whatever it's been. The 48 leaf Stan Musial in the PR, which stands for Pristine, the Pristine One. And this thing is just outrageous. It's got the one
Oh
little
man,
pin.
it has a pinhole. Is that what you got?
Yeah, it's got the pinhole at the top.
Oh, that's a glorious pinhole because
And
that thing's
it,
gorgeous.
it, you know, I mean, the registration can be so off on these. And like, I really believe, I mean, who knows? I'm not a professional grader, but without that pinhole, this might be a 4 or maybe a 4.5. It's got a little curling on a couple of the corners, but it's not bad. I guess it could be a 5. The color, the registration, I mean, it is just absolutely beautiful. To me, it looks better than, cards that are selling for a couple grand more. I mean, I know it's got a
Oh yeah,
pinholes, but it doesn't bother me a bit. In fact, uh, man, if I had the money available, I would buy cards like this with pinholes all day long in the
exactly.
four
Sign me up.
one. Yeah, sign me up. So I'm really stoked about that. And this is a guy, talking about me learning about players. Uh, I'm appreciating Stan Musial more and more all the time, just in terms of as a person and as a player.
He was the man. So
Yes, indeed.
Um, I mean, he's one of those inner circle Hall of Famer guys that doesn't get the credit for being an inner circle Hall of Famer. I mean, and it's really, I think, a lot just with the fact that he was in the Midwest versus the Northeast.
Oh, that's a good point. I wonder if another factor, would love to hear your thoughts on this, is that he spans pre-war, post-war. So, you know, he's a little bit earlier than that golden era, and maybe that has uh, not put him in as bright of lights in terms of the hobby.
It doesn't seem to pale DiMaggio or Williams much, does it? So,
Um, it seems to me like no, yeah, that's a good question.
I mean,
Yeah.
can you get into DiMaggio without a comma? Just about. So,
Well, I feel like
a few fringe issues, maybe.
yeah, I feel like uh, when you look at like Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, and Mickey Mantle, if we think of those as kind of maybe the big hobby players of the 50s, even though Willie Mays comes along and his rookie card being 54, I feel like they get more love and there's maybe somewhat higher prices there than DiMaggio, Musial, and Williams. Um, but maybe I'm wrong because when you look at the key sets that say the earliest cards for Mantle and Mays are 51 Bowman rookie cards and then 52 tops, the premier tops issue. So maybe that's part of why they typically get more money than say a 49 Leaf or a 48-49 Leaf Musial or maybe a 41 play ball Williams. Anyway, it seems to me like
Yeah.
there's a differential there, and that Mantle, Mays, and Aaron are getting somewhat more hobby love. I mean, usual Williams and DiMaggio get a lot of hobby love, but it seems to me like Mantle, Mays, and Aaron get somewhat more because they're more centered in that golden era. But I might be wrong. It's just a thought.
Well, there it does seem to be a little bit more of a highlighting of the folks in tops. Uh, with that being the continuous thread that runs all the way to now as far as baseball cards. So,
The other thing that could hurt Williams and Musial, maybe a little bit, I mean, they still get a lot of hobby love, is their hesitancy around contracts. And so they're missing from a number of key sets. So it's possible, I mean, they still have strong markets, but it's impossible that might damper it a little bit relative to, say, Mays and Mantle. But again, these are theories I have. They could be fake news.
yeah, I mean, it still feels like a mutual where they do overlap, at least is cheaper than like a Ted Williams, even though they're fairly close as far as Pantheon goes. So,
I guess what we've established is I think Musial, a carefully selected Musial, I know I said this in my videos, this avoided being a comma card, not by a whole lot, by a little bit at least. And to me, could we just take another hour for me to just show this?
it's a gorgeous card. So, I think my views are going to increase if that's my thumbnail there. So,
Awesome. I'll send you a pic if you want.
all right. Any other cards you want to show off before we move on?
Well, what the heck? Um, so I have four. I mean, I had said in one of my recent videos that I have fallen in love with 48-49 Leaf, and I've also fallen in love with 49 Bowman. Now, here's the thing that could be interpreted. Fallen in love is not to equate with I'm going to go collect the whole set or all the Hall of Famers in the set, or I'm going to get a bunch of these cards. It just means those sets really grabbed me. Before I was like, yeah, okay, they're there, 49 Bowman. I was like, yeah, okay, it's a set, it's all right. But then it just grabbed me.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to at least get a few. So I ended up getting four of the 48-49 Leaf. One is the Johnny Mize, which my wife got me for Christmas, although I bought it, but she got it for me for Christmas. I do have the other three here. I'll go ahead and show those. I showed them Musial. This is the Kiner that I picked up moderately, fairly recently as well, in a 3. and it's got, the registration is so often off on these, and this just has really nice color and registration.
Yeah.
John, I'm proud of myself because it has a teeny bit of corner wear, a little bit of corner wear, and so I'm proud of myself for starting to embrace a little corner wear. I love that card.
So Joe's rubbing off on you a little bit, huh?
Yeah, Joe and I, we're battling. I'm trying to get him to embrace, sharper corners. I'm just joking, of course. He's trying to get me to embrace soft corners. I think he's probably winning. Um, but I should pause to say that I really appreciate, people are on different budgets and people have different collecting styles. And I don't want to speak for Joe, but I think his style is he likes to collect a lot of cards and collect sets. So he's willing to give quite a bit on grade, and I totally respect that. Me, I don't necessarily, I'm not sure how big I want my collection to get. And there are things I like about graded cards, easier for my wife to sell if she needs to. I've kind of talked to her about, I mean, I'm in great health as far as I know, and from my last checkup, but if something happens to me, I've kind of talked to her about, how she can dispose of the cards. Um,
Well, clearly you're linked up with Mike Moynihan, so you just hand him off with the whole chasing cardboard folks, right?
Oh, there you go. That'd be one way to do it. So I thought, well, I'll show, out of my 4 Leafs, one is displaying in my room, the Johnny Mize. I just showed the Musial and the Kiner. This might be my favorite of all the cards that I have, and that is the Ted Williams.
That's a beautiful image there.
And this is a card. And again, for those who know, the registration can be so tough on these. That's a card where, and I feel blessed to have this piggy bank known as the remainder of my coin collection. I saw this card; it was a buy it now. I recognized how nice it was in my eyes for the grade, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to nab this and do some selling to compensate for part of that purchase. So, I try to be selective when I do that. This might be my favorite card now. It's hard for me to pick favorites, but it's right up there. Not because it has more value than a lot of cards, because this Lopat card is one of my favorite cards, and I spent $25 for it. Um, but the Ted Williams is one of my favorites just because I love it, regardless of the value.
Sure. Well, it's picking your favorite cards like picking your favorite kid, right?
Yeah. If you ask me to rank, I can do it, but the ranking, I think there can be like a misconception, because if you said rank your top 10 cards, somebody might think, well, here he showed number 10, he must like that a lot less than number 1. No, if you ask me to rank my top 10, those are going to be 10 cards that I really love. I could probably show you, and I'm sure, most collectors could, I could probably show you, 50 cards that I really love. And yeah, I would love the first one more than the 50th, but not necessarily by some huge margin.
Well, any of them, you wouldn't have bought it if you didn't like it. So
that's a great point. That's a great point. And it's not above, it's not, I wouldn't put it past me. I will sell something or trade it if I just want something else, or if I decide that I'm not so enthused about it. Of course, I do purchase items, with the general idea that I'm going to keep them long term, but there's some adjusting that occurs, and I'm totally cool with that, and I embrace that, at least for me, as part of the process, or part of my collecting style anyway.
or now with part of YouTube, then you give it to somebody who will love it more, maybe.
That's right. Some cards have went out in care packages. I've given some. I mean, they were all cards that I liked, but I've given some cards away that I would have been happy to hang on to in my collection, but I wanted somebody else to have it. I have given some away that I was like, yeah, this doesn't mean as much to me, but I think it will. I think this YouTuber will probably like this YouTube card collector, so I'll send it to them. So I haven't done too many care packages because I'm fairly new in the community, but I've done maybe a handful.
Sure. All right, stepping away now from cards, let's learn a little bit more about Adam himself with my closing random questions here.
Awesome.
All right, as a kid, what was your favorite Christmas gift?
Ooh, wow. I remember getting this like GI Joe Command Center. I think it might have taken a couple of D batteries, and you could put GI Joe in the plastic chair, and maybe it would take him from the upper level to the lower level or something like that. Um, I might have to think on it for a while, John, to come up with a better answer. But just off the top of my head, I remember getting that and being pretty stoked about it. It's long gone. We moved around a lot, yada yada. But
Sure.
I remember being enthused about that.
All right. What is your all-time favorite movie?
It would be, I don't know a lot about pop culture, and I don't necessarily watch a lot of movies. Um, but it would be a movie called Purgatory. It's a Western, and it's, a B movie. Was never, never, I don't think it was in the theaters, but in this movie, they have a lot of great actors. And when these guys die, these gunslingers, it's, of course it has this like based on a Christian type theme. So when these gunslingers die, if they're not bad enough to go to hell or good enough to go to heaven, they end up in purgatory. And there are certain rules in purgatory. There's a saloon, but you can't go in there and drink. When the church bell rings, you got to get in the church and be there, until it rings again or whatever, or until it tolls again. Anyway, there's certain rules. Well, this gang of bank robbers comes into purgatory, and it really uh, tests the gunslingers that are members of purgatory that need to keep their act clean for 10 years in order to go to heaven. Otherwise, they go to hell. So it sounds, I've watched it a few times. I watched it with a friend, and to me, it doesn't necessarily sound like it's going to be a great movie, but um, the couple people I've watched it with really loved it. So it's my favorite movie of all time. And probably a lot of people have never heard of it.
I am one of those people, so I will have to check that out.
But I'm not much of a movie buff, but I love that one.
All right. What are your condiments of choice for a hot dog?
Yeah, the only meat I eat is fish. I'm not
Oh,
against eating meat. I just don't eat it. So I don't eat hot dogs. But if I were to have like a veggie dog or whatever, if that counts, um, I would say probably some mayonnaise, preferably vegan type mayonnaise, although I wouldn't mind some real mayonnaise. Maybe a little ketchup. Ketchup to me is just sugar that's put on stuff to make it taste better, but that's my opinion. So I try not to use a lot of ketchup.
all right. I'm personally scared of heights. Do you have any phobias?
You know, uh, Not so scared of heights. I have a healthy respect, but when I was in the military, I was attached to a special forces unit and I was airborne. So we jumped out of planes. So, I could handle the heights. Claustrophobia, which I didn't know I had until I was shelf papering one of our cabinets some, 20 some years ago. And I started to panic and freak out and just about tore the cabinets apart. And then there was another incident that happened. So I have a claustrophobia. I'm okay in elevators, but if the space gets too tight, I discovered I have a claustrophobia that I didn't know I had until one day I got into a tight space as an adult and started to freak out.
Okay. Uh, so I am able to do this with one of my thumbs. I can't do it with the other one. My son, my oldest son, who looks almost just like me, has the same thing with the same finger. Do you have any useless talents?
Let's see. Okay, check out. I can flare my nostrils.
Excellent.
If I need to get more air, or if I need to maybe look a little more intimidating, or maybe just a little bit more cringeworthy. I don't know, but I can say the alphabet backwards.
All right. Excellent. Do you have a favorite song?
um, Not really. No, a lot of songs. I just listen to kind of like songs from the 70s and 80s on the radio. Um, but I don't really have a favorite song. But the songs that I like tend to be typically songs from maybe 60s, certainly 70s, and into the 80s.
All right. Uh, if you could only eat one single food the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh wow, wow, that's tough. Just one food, huh?
Yeah, I thought about that one, feeding the dog, and he gets the same meal every time. Um,
This might be cheating. I'm, just off the top of my head. Again, if I thought about this for a day, I'd come up with a better answer. But maybe granola, but that might be cheating because you can do a lot of stuff with granola. Um, but possibly granola, not the high sugar granola. It gets, but maybe my own granola blend or something because I'd be allowed to blend a few things in there if that's not cheating.
it feels a little cheating.
Okay, fair enough. Well, if I'm not going to go with that, then, and I've got to eat one food, wow. Um, well, I want to try to get something that has enough nutrition to sustain me long term. I don't know if salad's going to have nutrition, but it's not going to have a lot of calories.
Well, let's just
They
assume that you'll still survive on it. So,
okay, fair enough. I'm making this way too complicated. I
yes,
guess
sir.
I'll go with maybe a corn crust pizza. If the corn crust is done right, I'm a weird bird, man. When it comes to cultural stuff, my answers are probably going to suck.
They're your answers, and we're getting to know you, Adam.
Oh, well,
So,
thank you. Thank you.
all right. If you could travel anywhere through time, past, present, future, where would you want to go? Like, what
Yeah.
would you want to see?
Yeah. Well, I am a committed Christian. However, I have no desire to push my belief system on others. I mean, of course, I'm committed to what I believe, but I enjoy having friends who see things differently, and I respect that. But I would definitely go back to the time that Jesus was on Earth, and it'd be cool to, I don't know, maybe be one of his disciples, so I could screw it all up like they did.
All righty. Uh, if you had the ability to instantly switch professions and instantly be competent at that new profession, what would you choose?
Oh, no question. I would be a professional athlete. Yeah. And,
A particular sport?
I would think, here's the thing. I just got into vintage baseball a couple of years ago, and I haven't watched a lot of baseball yet. In the past, I used to think it was kind of slow and boring, but now getting to be an old geezer. I'll be 59 this month. So, if you ask me that question in a few years, it'll probably be baseball. It's heading toward baseball. I'm going to go ahead and say Major League Baseball.
All right, great answer. Uh, lastly, since I've seen you quarrel with this issue numerous times,
Yeah.
what came first, the chicken or the egg?
That's great. Okay, here's the deal. I will reveal my creationist bias and say that, God created the chickens and then the chickens laid eggs. But I understand that, those who would take an evolutionary approach would see things differently. But based on my creationist bias, I'm going to say the chickens came first.
All right, that is all my questions. Thank you for playing along, Adam. Thanks for joining me on this interview today. Any last thoughts for the folks at home?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to say thank you for having me on your episode of Authentic and Unaltered. I really appreciate it, John. I'm, blessed to be getting to know you more and more. And, I really appreciate the more that I get to know you. I'm not just saying this because I'm on your program, but the more that I get to know you, the more that, and I learn about you through your YouTube videos, through, our various communications, the more I appreciate you. And so thank you for your friendship. And thank you for having me on as number 3 in honor of Babe Ruth, even though I had to, I was like, okay, wait a minute. I was thinking, okay, number 3, because I tend to think more of the post war Yankees and not so much of the pre-war. I mean, I have a few post-playing days cards of Babe Ruth, but anyway, thank you for having me on episode number 3 of your awesome, relatively new program.
Thank you, Adam. It was great to have you, and all those feelings are right back at you. Uh, uh, so thanks everybody for watching, and remember, folks, that's all over the second we write up Troy's bucket. So thanks for watching.